Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. It's 7:01 p.m. Just going to read the top part of the agenda. It says, our mission. It is our mission to build a model community which meets the demands of today's residents while protecting for a bright future. Would someone from council be willing to read the acknowledgement today? Councillor Wayne.
Today, I acknowledge that the town of Bruderheim is located on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation of Alberta. The town of Bruderheim honors the first peoples of this land. We recognize that we stand upon land that carries the footsteps of Cree, Métis, Blackfoot, amongst other nations who have been here for thousands of years. Therefore, the town of Bruderheim has an inherent responsibility to foster healthy relationships with First People and further the calls to action as outlined by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. So we'll call this meeting to order. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, administration would like to add 5.3, proclamation for Pitchin Week.
Thank you. Duly noted. Any other additions, deletions, or changes from council? Okay, then we'll be looking for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Dana.
I adopt the agenda as amended.
Thanks for that motion, Dana. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with the motion to adopt the agenda? Haven't heard none. We'll call for a vote. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. Now we can move on to our delegations. 5.1, financial audit. Phil Dirks from Matrix Group will be joining us virtually. Hi, Phil.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, good to see you.
Yes, I hope you're all doing well there.
You tell us after you're done your presentation.
Okay, well, I understand that you have a nice big screen there. So I'm going to share my screen here and then you can tell me if you can't see it good enough, but let's see here. So good evening. My name is Phil Dirks. Hopefully my screen's up there now. Confirm?
Yep, 10-4.
All right, great. My name is Phil Dirks, and I'm a partner with Metrics Group Chartered Professional Accountants, and we are the town's auditors. So I'm glad to be with you to say a few words about the audit, give you some highlights of the financial statements, and answer any questions you might have. So I'm just going to start off by saying a few words about our auditor's report. So back in, I think it was January or so around there, we had sent you an audit plan that discussed various items regarding how we would approach the audit and those types of things. So one of the things that was mentioned in there is that the auditors in Canada have to follow Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. So I won't bore you with all the details of those rules, but we're bound by those rules. And at the end of the day, when we're finished our work, we attach our auditor's report to the financial statements. And that report includes an opinion paragraph here. And in that paragraph, we're stating that the town's financial statements are in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So that's a clean opinion. Audit went well, thanks to Sharon, Patty, Andrea, anybody else that was helping out there. The report itself here, the auditor's report, is a standard report. If you looked at any other municipality, it would look very similar. The dates might be a little different, and obviously the names. But other than that, I think that's the most important part of the auditor's report. The rest of the report goes on to discuss a little bit more detail what an audit is and what the auditors do. So I'll leave it at that. Report's dated today, because presumably that's the day that council is going to approve the financial statements. So moving along to the statement of financial position. Oops. So you can see here, top of the page, financial assets. So those are things that are either cash or very close to cash. We're just over $3 million. So you can see you had some cash balances there of 1.3 million. Probably the most important part in that number is receivables, which was 1.7 million. So I'll just take a look at the note for a little more detail on that. So you can see here, middle of the page, there's the 1.7 million. So what is that number made up of? biggest portion of that is other governments. So that's primarily MSI and what used to be federal gas tax funding allocations that you haven't received yet up till 2021. Other than that, standard types of things such as utilities here, 76,000, and some other receivables, and taxes. Taxes were just under $500,000. You will notice that there is an allowance here for $124,000, which was increased from 2020. So really has to do with one of the taxpayers that's in arrears. So it was, we discussed that with management and came to an agreement that $100,000 would be set up as an allowance against some of these taxes that are discussed in this paragraph here, just due to the uncertainty around ultimate collection of those amounts. So in our opinion, that was a prudent thing to do.
Ooh, you were cutting out there, Phil.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that my back?
Yeah, no, it sounds like you're in a can or something.
Just hang on a second. I got a fan running here. Sorry. I thought it was far enough away that it wouldn't matter. Is that better?
Not a whole lot. Something's changed on your volume there or something. Okay, that's better.
That's better? Okay. Is that better?
It's kind of garbled.
So maybe I should.
Oh, there, now you're back.
Okay, I'll try not to touch anything. So overall, again, that's receivables. Looking at liabilities. So the town had total obligations of 3.1 million, 3.2 million. Comprised of various payables and so on. Really, this difference here is just due to some timing. 2020 had more construction going on at the end of the year than 2021, so that's why it's a bit lower. The two biggest balances in the liability accounts are deferred revenue and long-term debt. So let's take a quick look at those. So again, just to remind you, deferred revenue represents funds that the town has received but hasn't spent on, haven't expended them on the things that those were specified for. So total was 1.5 million. So common kind of things here. You can see MSI over here on the left, and then the Canada Community Building Fund. That was what was federal gas tax. So these are the monies that are your allocations, town's allocations up to 2021 that haven't been expended yet at that point. So those will become revenue in a future period. And then looking at long-term debt. So these are debentures that the town has with Alberta Capital Financing Authority. So you can see here, they basically bear interest around 3-4%, and those will be paid out anywhere between 2025 all the way to 2051. So got a ways to go on a couple of those. So that really is rounds out the liabilities. So just going back to the other page here, again, total liabilities, 3.2 million. Financial assets were 3 million. So that leaves the difference between those is what's referred to as net debt. So if the world ended on December 31st, you know, and you collected the receivables here, paid off these liabilities, you would have been a little bit short. So that 160,000 is really represents monies that are going to have to come from future taxes. So it's not alarming that it's negative, you know, includes the long-term debt, which we just saw doesn't have to be repaid till all the way till 2050. So overall, your financial position here improved by about $190,000 compared to last year. Just rounding out the statement of financial position. So looking at non-financial assets, the largest asset on any municipality's books is generally going to be tangible capital assets. So those are, you know, buildings, infrastructure, those types of things. So here we can see a little bit of details of what happened in those accounts last year. The town added $346,000 of assets to its accounts, things which I'm sure you're aware of, but you know, the 12,280 was a crosswalk. You did some work on the water reservoir, it's 110 here. And then there was some work on the emergency operations center, some of the stuff that you're using tonight, internet, those types of things, tractors, some hydrants and those types of things. So overall total was $346,000 last year for capital additions. So just remember that this number here is not necessarily, this 12 million is not necessarily what you would be able to sell those items for. That's what the town paid for those assets, less the amortization to date. So total non-financial assets were just over $12 million. When you add that to the net debt, those two items give you what is called the accumulated surplus. And I'll come back to the accumulated surplus here in just a few minutes. So looking at the statement of operations, so these are revenues, operating revenues here, top of the page, compared to budget and last year. So you can see total operating revenue was just under 2.9 million. Standard types of things, taxes, sales and use charges, that's primarily utilities, water, sewer, garbage. So a couple things just to point out here. Pretty good results overall to budget. Sales and user charges was a little bit under budget just due to the difficulty estimating how the sewer would pan out with the switch to consumption. And then also actually the government transfers, so that's grants. The town actually received some grant funding for the stormwater assessment, which is about $120,000. So that wasn't budgeted. That's why this is over budget. And there was actually an offsetting cost as well below, which I will point out in a second. Other than that, a couple other things to note. Rentals, you can see that was quite a bit less than budget due to COVID and the arena operations. And yeah, that was about it. So, you know, really when you look at total revenue to budget, you're about $50,000 under budget, primarily due to a combination of those three items. Carrying on and take a look at expenses. So we're going to look at expenses with amortization, and then we're going to look at expenses without. So for now, you know, amortization is down at the bottom here. So none of the items in between here and there include amortization. So when you look down here, actuals to budget, most of these items, you know, are very close to budget or just under for the most part. One of the things to point out here, I mentioned in the grants that you did have some extra money for a grant for the stormwater assessment. So this is the other side of that. So you have an expense down here. So that's why that's in excess of budget. Other than that, what do we have? Bylaw, or sorry, disaster measures was a little bit less than actual as well. But overall, totally, you know, total expenses, 3.2 versus 3.1 basically. So about $120,000 less than budget overall. And if you looked at, you know, last year to this year, again, some of that is a one-off with that stormwater assessment, added $120,000 to the previous year number. So you kind of would have to do a bit of math there to make an accurate or a comparison one year to the next. But overall, total revenues less expenses. So from an accounting standpoint, now we're going to get into some exciting stuff here. We're going to talk about surpluses and deficits. So from an accounting standpoint, town did have a small deficit there of about $295,000. But again, that includes amortization. So I'm going to do a little bit of accounting magic for you here.
Phil, could you explain amortization for our new councillors, please?
Oh, sure. So amortization is just a method of allocating the cost of capital piece of equipment or asset over its useful life. So best example I can think of, let's just say you buy a grader. You know, you might pay $100,000 for the grader, and you know, we don't call that an expense in the year you buy it because it lasts more than 1 year. So let's say town decides, I think that grader will last us 10 years. We have $100,000 divided by 10. So every year there would be an expense for $10,000 in amortization to recognize the cost of using that piece of equipment. So I'm going to just take out amortization here. You don't have this in your slides, but abracadabra, there we go, it's gone. So now you can see here, total revenues less expenses. You actually, if you ignore amortization, you might think, well, why would I ignore that? Because it doesn't involve cash. It's an important number, but it doesn't involve cash. So you can see here that the town did actually have a surplus without amortization of about $200. So the point being, you did bring in more funds than you expended. So you were, from that standpoint, running in the black last year.
Phil?
Yeah.
You said $200?
200,000, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. I might have cut out there. I thought I said, anyway, that was what I meant. And, compared to your budget, you were 114,000. So you were slightly better than budget, primarily due to expenses being a little bit less than was anticipated. So I know it's a little bit, there's a lot of numbers here, but that's an important number. You did actually bring in more funds than you expended as far as operating goes. So back to the accounting set of statements. So beyond the operations, there's other revenue that the town has recorded as well. That totaled $310,000, and most of that is capital grants for capital assets. So why is it reported down here? It's because there are no costs up here related to this. It's like when I was talking about, you buy a grader. We don't have an expense up here for a grader, so we're reporting these down here so we don't skew the operating results. So, you used MSI and some other grants for the reservoir work, hydrants, some of the work at the Emergency Operations Center and then the tractor. So overall, again, total other revenue was $309,000. And then from accounting standpoint, strictly, you did have an annual surplus of just under $14,000. So one other thing I was just going to point out too, and I don't know if it's worth it, but I'll do it anyways. So, if you look at, basically we're trying to get back to some version of cash here so you can see that, hey, we were running in the positive last year. So I'm just going to show you here on the statement of changes in net debt. So the town had an annual annual surplus of $13,828. Now there's things here that are also included that we have to account for that used cash or didn't use cash that are involved. So town purchased capital assets of $346,000. So that wasn't included in the annual surplus. And then we have to take out amortization because that doesn't involve cash. So really this number here at the bottom, 161,000, is more or less kind of your operating surplus or your surplus before debt payments. So you would have been able to use this $161,000 to pay back debt, and then you would have had some left over. So that's why when we looked at net debt, the town's net debt has decreased. So you actually brought in more money than you spent. Looking at some of the other items in the financial statements, just for interest's sake, one of the things that's maybe a little bit interesting here is when we look at things on a functional basis, your utilities, those actually have a surplus before amortization of 150,000 and after amortization of 116. So you were able to cover your costs last year. And actually, if you look at 2020, same thing there. You were able to cover your costs in 2020 as well. And I think that's why you did adjust some of the rates and so on in 2021. Other than that, on the financial statements, I think probably the next thing we just want to move on to here is talk about, before I get there, I'll just mention debt limits. So just a reminder, debt limits are required to be disclosed in the financial statements under the Municipal Government Act. So you can see here, town's debt limit was 4.3 million. So that's based on 1.5 times the town's revenue. I don't make up these rules. Somebody that writes the Municipal Government Act does. And then the town has $1,300,000 of debt. So you had a debt limit available of $3 million. So you're well within your debt limits. You could borrow $3 million without having to go and get special permission from the province. So I think that brings us to accumulated surplus. So back when I was talking about the statement of financial position, maybe I'll just swing back there again. I said the town's accumulated surplus was $11,847,000. So here's the $11,847,000. So what is that made up of? So a good portion of that, most of it actually, is tied up in capital assets, graders, tractors, roads, buildings, those types of things. So it's the same concept as, you know, our home finances. We all have a lot of equity in our house. And we can't go over to the teller and say, give me $10 million. That's not in the bank. So that's non-liquid. In addition to that, the town also has included in accumulated surplus or your savings is $1,127,000. And that has been set aside in reserves or restricted surplus. So these are things that the town by bylaw or policy, the town's reserve policy has set up these reserves. And there was just over $1.1 million in those reserves at the end of the year. So these are set aside for to cover future costs and so on. So when we do the audit, we look at the transactions that go through there and basically board council motions and or budgets. And that's how these changes are derived here.
Phil, can we ask a question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
You've got marked down as a reserve land. So we've got some land with money on it, or what does that mean?
Probably have to defer to Patty on that one. I imagine it's been set up for future purchases, but Patty, do you remember?
Mr. Mayor, yes, that is actually the buying and selling of land, municipal land. So we buy some, we sell some, and that's where it goes through that reserve.
Thank you.
Okay, so like I mentioned, total reserves was just over $1,127,000. And in addition to that, so the town also has unrestricted surplus that hasn't been set aside for anything in particular. So, you know, you need money to run the day-to-day operations. So that's really what that represents. So you can think of these two amounts as, you know, your total savings, so to speak. Some of it's been set aside for things that you want to do in the future, and some of it has not been segregated in that way. So overall, you know, like I said, town's financial position actually did improve from last year. Net debt was about $190,000 less than last year. So that's probably, you know, if I just, before I move on, if I want to maybe highlight two things, you know, you had good results as far as the budget. The net debt was decreased. And the only other thing that was probably of really significance is adding the $100,000 to the allowance for doubtful accounts for taxes. So those are the kind of things that you want to take away here. Beyond the financial statements, we also provided council with an audit findings report. I won't necessarily go through the whole thing, the whole document, but these are the highlights from that document. So that document is required by Canadian auditing standards, and there's certain items that we're required to discuss with you. So we didn't find any significant control deficiencies. Town, as far as we're concerned, had no unusual accounting policies or estimates. You know, really the only estimate, a couple estimates that the town makes for amortization and allowance for doubtful accounts. There were no significant uncorrected misstatements. We did make a few adjustments during the course of the audit, but the numbers did not change significantly from what you would have seen pre-audit. So that's great. And we did not have any significant difficulties during the audit. So, you know, thanks to Sharon, like I mentioned earlier, and Andrea and others for the good work that they did in helping us get things done. And that's definitely appreciated. So overall, that's what I had to say. And maybe I'll just stop there and open it up for questions.
Does anybody have any questions from council for Phil? Go ahead, Councilor Wayne.
I'm not sure if it's for you or for Patty, but on the long-term debts for 30,000, what is that? The loader? Is that?
Mr. Mayor, through Council Echo, that's correct. And we didn't pay the loader off till 2022. That's why it's showing up in the 2021 financial
So
statements.
that is taken care of? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we paid it off in January of 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor George.
In our land assessment reserves, you got $8,000. That's notable cash, not notable value of land.
Mr. Mayor, in the land reserve, is that what you're talking to,
Yes.
Councillor Campbell? Yeah, that's just a result of buying and selling land. That's what's left. So anytime we sell land, put the money there. Anytime we purchase land, we put the money there. So that's just left over from transactions of land sales.
And the land that we have and investment, is that go into our report as it appreciates?
Yeah, it would be a tangible asset, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't think we appreciate land, do we, Mr. Dirk?
No.
No.
No, so if you're referring to this land and land improvements, the accounting rules require that these assets be recorded at cost, and they are not adjusted to market value under public sector accounting standards. So that's just the original cost. So, you know, if you buy land, it may have increased or, you know, something like that, but it wouldn't be reflected in the financial statements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Any other questions from council? Is it worth noting about having, what did we call that? The overage, or what was wording he used there? Surplus, yeah. Because when I first got on council, I thought we have to drive to zero every year, but that's not the best case scenario for the town, and maybe just an explanation about that so that folks don't think, hey, they're gouging us for 160,000 extra.
So, oh, sorry, Phil. Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, you go ahead, Patty.
So, Mr. Mayor, as you know, the budget is zero, so revenues equal expenses. That's what we do. And I think Mr. Dirks pointed out that we got some grants. There was the loss in revenue for some facilities. We didn't hire as many staff. So again, the budget's a crystal ball based on the previous year, and we always have a zero line budget item. And again, the utilities are separate. They have to balance themselves out. So some of that surplus or loss there is separate from the tax base, because that's collected through utilities, even though it shows up in the operating account. So 60,000 is pretty darn close, probably as close as you're going to get. It's better than 60 the other way, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, if I could just say, I'm just really happy with the pandemic. I was very nervous throughout the year, as you know, with our loss in revenue on the hall and the arena. That was huge. So I'm happy that we were able to maintain that close.
Thank you.
Yeah,
For that.
if I could just add, if you're interested and you're wondering about, you know, if you look at this statement here and you think, why does the budget say there's a budget of deficit of $194,000? You know, and the comment was, well, we budget to zero. You need to go to this note here at the back, and this will show you how you get back to zero. So, you know, this is where you pick up, and then these items get you back down to where the town balances budget. Some of the differences there result from, you know, revenues and expenses in the accounting world do not include reserve transfers, and a lot of times the municipalities tend to think of those as revenues and expenses as well when they're balancing a budget. So that's why this notice here, to show you how you got back to a balanced budget.
Thanks, Phil, for the secret update there at the end of your document.
Yeah, well, you know, I wish it could be a little more straightforward, but it does require a little bit of digging for sure.
Any other questions from council for Phil? No, I guess you're off the hook there, Phil. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just comment for our new councillors, the purpose of the financial audit is to make sure that the budget that we brought to council is indeed what administration did, delivered, followed. And so Phil is actually working for council, not administration. So he pulls invoices, he pulls payables, receivables, looks at salaries to make sure that we're doing what we said we were going to do, and that protects council and the town. So the audit really belongs to council, not administration. So that's the importance of this audit for you.
Yeah, good point, Patty. You know, like Patty said, we work for council, but we work with administration. You know, I didn't really get into the nuts and the bolts of auditing, but that does give some perspective.
Councilor Len.
Well, Phil, I'd like to thank you very much, especially after the last 2 years of disaster the province had. We're coming out with the surplus is pretty darn good, I think, for any. I don't know what is the consensus of the other communities around. Are they doing the same, or?
Boy,
You did a very good job. I'm very happy with that.
well, thank you. I think that I'm just going from memory, but you know, some of the other communities that we audit or I'm in charge of in the area are Lamont, the town of Lamont, Bonaccord, Gibbons. I think, well, Bonaccord and Lamont, I think they're very similar kind of results to what you are experiencing here. A lot of times they budget to break even, and you know, they end up spending a little bit less money for whatever reason, unless there's a disaster, and then they end up with a small surplus. So, you know, that's just kind of going from memory. Actually, one of the things that you might be interested in, and I think administration could get those for you. The province, I think, does still do some comparisons. Looks at various different metrics, you know, taxes per capita, long-term debt per capita, those types of things. But we used to be able to access those, but we're not able to anymore. But that might be something that administration could get from municipal affairs. You might find that interesting because it compares to other communities of similar size or assessment, so on.
Yeah, I remember when you did that in the past. Yeah, that was useful information.
That was
Thanks.
a great, you know, if you're wondering what your tax dollars are doing, that was one of the good things that the tax dollars were doing. So I don't know why we can't get those directly anymore.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Lynn. Councillor George?
I just want to take this moment to thank our administration department. Through their diligence, hard work, and expertise, we would have never got to the audit that we got. Their frugality, dedication to the town. We should be very, very thankful to have a team representing the town like we have in our administration department. I thank Patty and her team very, very much for bringing us to the point where we can accept a very good audit.
Thank you, Councillor George. I'd echo those statements that what Phil has cooked up there validates the great job that our administration has done. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or information to share? No. So I guess you're off the hook, Phil. I think we covered the gamut there. So the next thing we'll be looking for a motion to accept the financial report or financial audit as information. Councillor George. Oh, yeah. So you'd have to read the actual motion there, George.
Glasses. I make a motion that town council accept the audited financial statements for the town of Bruderheim for the year ending December 31st, 2021 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, haven't heard none. Call for a vote. Anyone opposed to the motion? And that motion is carried. Now we need a separate motion for the audited financial information return. Councillor Wayne.
The town council accept the audited financial information return for the town of Bruderheim for the year ended December 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, haven't heard none. We'll call for a vote. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. So then we can move on to 5.2, Tanmar Consulting. Thanks a lot, Phil.
Thank you for having me. Nice talking to you.
Yeah.
And if you think of other things you want to ask me, Patty can help you hook me up.
Your
good
love
night.
of numbers still shows through, Phil.
Well, I'm going to leave you with a quick story. Like, just a minute. I was reading an article the other morning, and it was like the top 10 most boring jobs on earth. And I thought, oh no, we're going to be maybe, you know, accounting might be 8 or 9. No, it was right up there, number 2. So that's what I got to deal with. So anyway, have a good.
Thanks. Have a good night. Welcome, Mr. Krim. Thanks for coming. Is there a preamble for Mike's presentation? Okay, so we welcome Mike to our presentation. As you see some new counselors, Councillor Ashley Carter and Councillor Dana, everybody else you've seen last year. So
yes,
and dive right into your report.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invite to come out and present the assessment information to you. For many of you, this will be a little bit of a refresher on assessment policy and how we do assessment in Alberta. And then for the new counselors, it'll be hopefully some new information and stuff that you can take home with you and understand a little bit more, I'm hoping, with regards to assessment. Those are the first few pages, and then I'll get into the actual nuts and bolts of what happened with the town of Bruderheim's assessment over the last year. So on the second slide, assessment versus taxation, they are two distinct processes. Assessment is assigning $1 to a property for taxation. That's what we do for the town. And that value can either be market value or regulated value. And I'll get it more into those in a couple slides. And then the process of taxation, as you know, is applying a tax rate to an assessment to determine the taxes that are payable. And that taxation is the primary source of revenue for a municipality. And again, although one impacts the other, they are two distinct and independent processes. Next slide. The Alberta Municipal Affairs governs what we do, just like what they do for you. They provide all the legislation regarding property assessment and taxation through the Municipal Government Act and through various regulations. They also provide yearly oversight of the assessment through their audit department. So every year when we present the assessment to Municipal Affairs prior to the town, they run their initial audit test to make sure that it passes their regulations and statistical requirements that are set out in legislation. And that just ensures that the rules are followed and ensures that there's fairness and equity in the assessment. Next slide. Going back to the valuation standards, I mentioned that there are two valuation standards in Alberta. First one's market value, and that's used for the majority of properties. It's considered the most fair and equitable method. Most taxpayers can relate to the value of their property, and it's easier for assessors to work with. We have easy access to sales data, MLS data, those kinds of things that help us determine what a fair market value assessment would be. The second standard used in Alberta is the regulated procedure standard. It's used for properties that are more difficult to assess, and those values are provided by Municipal Affairs, and they include farmland, machinery equipment, and designated industrial property. So farmland is not assessed on market value, it's assessed on its productivity. Machinery equipment used in manufacturing and processing is assessed using rates that the province has provided, and designated industrial property. And those include things like linear assessments, so your cable, your power transmission, your pipelines, your wells, those are all linear property, and those are assessed by Municipal Affairs. When you talk about market value on the next slide, it's defined as the price a property might reasonably be expected to sell for if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after appropriate time and exposure in an open market. And there's some key characteristics to be aware of. It's the most probable price, not the highest, the lowest, or the average price. It assumes a willing buyer and a willing seller with no advantage being taken by either party. And it assumes a transaction between unrelated parties in the open market. So those are all key tenets of the market value system. On the next slide, sometimes we get concerns by ratepayers that an assessment should equal a recent sale price, and that's not always the case. The sale might not have occurred in the assessment year or on the date on which the property was valued. The buyer or seller might have been unduly motivated, or the sale might have involved some type of trade or personal property. So when we look at a sale price, we look at that as being a historical fact. That's the amount that was agreed upon by both the purchaser and a seller in that specific transaction. But we gather information on a range of sale prices, all the sale prices, as part of the process for assessing property. This is next slide kind of talks again about the regulated procedure standard. I don't know that I need to go through this slide again. It talks about the farmland, the machine equipment, and the designated industrial property. I've already mentioned those things. Next slide. When we prepare assessments, we're looking at land improvements, and improvements meaning buildings, or a parcel of land and the improvements to it. We use mass appraisal, and that's simply the process of valuing large groups of properties as of a given date using common data, mathematical models, and statistical tests. So our focus as assessors is always on the larger group, not a specific property, such as a fee appraiser would be focused on a specific property. Next page, continuing on with data collection. We collect data through a number of different means, including site inspections, blueprints, written requests, MLS data, sales data from Alberta registries. The data elements that we look for in a residential property include land area, building size, location, number of bathrooms, age, whether or not there's basement finish, how many fireplaces, what type of renovations have occurred, those kinds of things. On non-residential properties, we look for similar in certain things, building size, location, age, but we're also oftentimes asking for income data and not business income data, more rental income data. So for example, there's a strip commercial property, that property owner collects rent from the tenants. We're looking for that type of data because that data or that income can be converted into a value in real estate. Income data would be important on apartment buildings, important on hotels, those types of properties as well. Next slide. How often do we assess property? Well, every property is adjusted yearly for changes in market value or for changes in the rates provided by the provincial government, including machine and equipment assessments. We do specifically review 20% of properties annually to identify renovations, additions, deletions. And we've recently, in the last couple of years, started the use of a request for information on residential properties that has become more and more popular across Alberta. Many municipalities have gone to this, and we're finding we're getting really good results. Response rates are up from what we used to get when we left the card on the door, for example. People are vigilant. They don't want typically anybody knocking on the door, let alone an assessor, but they're very willing most of the time to provide information through an online questionnaire or through a mail-in questionnaire. And we're getting good data that way. And new construction is inspected as it is built, and we monitor that until completion. Next slide. Assessment classes. We have to assign an assessment class to each and every property based on 4 different classes from the MGA. The first one's residential, second one's non-residential, third one farmland, and the fourth one machinery and equipment. And it's that class that determines the tax rates that's going to be applied to that property. Property owners have rights. They have right to assessment information. Not only their own assessment information, but comparable assessment information as well. So they can get that assessment information through direct contact with us through our website, tanmarconsulting.com, through the town of Bruderheim. They also have the right to make a complaint against the assessment if they're not satisfied with it. We always encourage them to talk to the assessor first. Oftentimes, issues can be resolved in this fashion. If they're still not satisfied, then and they want to pursue that complaint, they fill out a complaint form available at the town office. There is a fee to pay. And then they are required to prepare for and attend an assessment review board hearing. And the next slide talks about those review boards. They are quasi-judicial administrative boards. They're created, empowered, and staffed according to the legislation laid out in the MGA. And like a court, the board can order something to be done, such as a change to the property assessment. There are 3 boards. The LARB, Local Assessment Review Board, deals with residential complaints. The CARB, Composite Review Board, deals with non-residential. And then the MGB for designated industrial properties, that's the DI, designated industrial. Any decisions made by a board are current year only. They don't carry forward. They don't go backwards in time. Next slide. When it comes to property taxes, a property's share of taxes will change each year for a combination of 2 reasons. There's a change in the annual budget requirement, either municipal or school, or a particular property assessment changed more or less than the average within town. So when it comes to the primary goal, our primary goal is to achieve a level of market value and fair process across all properties and not a single pinpointed appraised value. If everyone's assessment is calculated using the same methods and techniques within the town while using sales within the town as a benchmark, then that level of market value is achieved and the tax distribution should be fair and equitable. All right, getting into the actual results of the assessment changes this last year. First thing is to point out that we adjusted all the assessments to a valuation date of July 1st, 2021. That's a legislated date. The previous year was July 1st, 2020. Previous year 2019. Every year it changes and it's always based on July 1st. That ensures that everybody's assessed as of the same date. We also have to record the condition date, physical characteristics of the property as of December 31st. So that means a property that is under construction, maybe only framed by year end, is assessed as such. And then we follow up on that in the following year to ensure we've captured additional value once that property is complete. Yes.
So is that the same thing like with renovations and whatnot? Like if someone's doing a renovation of their home, like a full renovation, you'll assess it first and then you'll return to reassess it?
Yes, especially on properties that might be a full gut job where they're taking it right down to the studs and redoing everything. It's important for people to let us know that so we can monitor those changes as time goes along, because there could be an assessment reduction early on when they've gutted it and then increasing as time goes on. If it's a simple siding and windows type thing, then probably not. Like the assessment will change, but it probably won't go down before it changes. It'll just go up. Yeah. The next slide shows the review area that was our cycle this year, and that's residential in the central area plus the downtown commercial. Next slide talks about the request for information that we sent to those residential properties in that area. 99 requests were sent out. We got a 54% response rate. The previous year, we got a better response rate, 72%. And that's because we sent out a reminder notice to those people that didn't respond the first time, whereas this last year we didn't. However, we did follow up on those 46 that didn't respond by driving by looking for renovations. If we saw something, we left a card on the door. And we're going to hopefully with the town proceed forward with those requests again this year. And anytime there's no response, we want to send out that reminder notice because we do get quite a bit more response that second time. The kind of things that we're looking for or asking about, again, are number of bathrooms, fireplaces, amount of basement finish, things that we probably have on the assessment, but we want to confirm. And if there's been any changes, we definitely want to confirm.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to let council know too that some of our seniors in town came to the town office with these forms and we assisted them in filling them out and we forward them on. So that worked well too.
Thank you.
The next slide shows the average market change in the various areas of town. And at first glance, this might seem like, wow, there was a pretty big increase in market value, but there's reasons behind that. The average market value change in town was plus 8.2%. You'll see from the map, West Woodlands had a 9.9% increase on average. Other areas had between 5.9 in Sunset and 9.6 in Brookside. And that's simply us following what the market showed us. And the sales in Bruderheim in that time frame up to July of 2021 showed a pretty good increase in values. Why is that? I can't answer that. I don't set the market. I just report it for assessment purposes. But what I did find is that for Bruderheim tends to follow over a long period of time. I look back at the last 3, 4, 5 years to see exactly and compared with places like Bonaccord and Lamont and Fort Saskatchewan. It tends to follow on a percentage basis Fort Saskatchewan very well, meaning that if Fort Saskatchewan goes up 5 or 6 or 7% in a year, Bruderheim tends to do that as well. Maybe not in that year, but certainly over a longer term period, it tends to follow those. It doesn't follow the town of Lamont, for example, as closely as you might expect. And I wonder if it's a little bit to do with exposure or proximity to Heartland, proximity to the city of Fort Saskatchewan, a little bit closer, those kinds of things. But it was interesting to me to come across that. And yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
I guess there's some areas on here that aren't marked. Some houses or a business that aren't in here identified as an increase or where they fit in there.
If you're thinking about acreage properties, it does show on that just kind of in the middle above the where the mobile home parks are. Acreage properties were up 7.3%.
Yeah, I'm looking like at kind of where the Teals greenhouse there, unless I'm looking at this wrong.
That would be considered an acreage property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
then-
on average, the acreage properties, including those, would be up to 7.3%.
And that would be west of the maintenance yard as well. Is that included in that as well?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councillor George, please use your mic.
What is the rate of increase lower in a subdivision that is newer than Old Town? I see a 6.2% in Old Town and 5.9. It's a newer subdivision.
Yeah, I mean, those percentages are very close. And again, it's just following the market. And if the market's showing a 5.5% increase in one and a 6% increase in the other, that's what we have to follow for assessment. Over the long term, those changes are probably going to be a lot closer together, but certainly over the short term, you're going to see a little bit more jumping around. I can look back at last year's and the year before, and those same areas. Sunset went down 7.5. The central area went down 5.5. The previous year, Sunset went down 3.5, and the central area went down 4. So it does change and back and forth on a yearly basis. And again, we're talking about not too dissimilar property values and only 0.3% difference, which isn't a lot. On the next slide, if we're ready. This is just showing the average single family dwelling assessment over the years, 10 years, and you'll see that there was, including growth. So it was 8 point or 9 point something percent, not including growth. Sorry, 8.2% for inflation, but including any growth, the average assessment on a single family property went up 9.4% from 207,600 to 227,100. So kind of back to values back in 2016. On the next slide, we have a bar graph that shows that 70% on that blue bar, 70% of your single family properties went up between 7 and 13%. If you add in the 0 to 7% change, you're well above 90% now of your properties seeing increases. Anything higher, for example, more than 20%, those are the ones that are going to have some growth, possibly a house that was incomplete the previous year, a new house that was under construction that was adjusted upwards or completed.
Those top two, that more than 20 and 13 to 20, is that correct? Saying 2 of each? 2 dwellings?
There'd be, yeah, so more than 20 and 13 to 20, if you go over to the right, you have to kind of go to the bottom of that table. 13 to 20, there was 9 of those, and more than 20, there was 11 of those. So
Okay.
again, those are going to be properties where we found some growth, whether it was a new house that was under construction the previous year or some major renovations that were captured in the assessment. Or maybe a garage was added or something like that. On the next slide, this is where we compare with some other municipalities, so you can see how you stack up against these other municipalities. Bon Accord, the average assessment was up 2.6% for an assessment value of 257,000. Fort Saskatchewan, 6%, 6.3% average assessment there of 402,000. Redwater, 0.8%, and Lamont, 1.4%. On the commercial side, 1.9% average increase for commercial properties. The hotel, we had a pretty significant reduction last year. Hospitality properties were hit rather hard during that pandemic. And this year we were able to hold the line on that, notwithstanding the fact that they didn't respond to our request for information. So we didn't really have much more information to go on. We held the line, and we're going to be knocking on their door again this year for sure. Next slide. For assessment growth, there were no new houses picked up this last year. However, 2 houses that were built back in 2018 and had that municipal tax-free for 3 years are no longer tax-free, so they're on the roll fully now. There was an increase to the Oasis of the Heartlands apartments. That's because their occupancies are up, where they were down quite substantially over the last few years, and that means their rents are up, their overall income is up, so we were able to get some assessment there. And then some growth from our assessment review area, renovations, things like that. This is an overall growth versus inflation summary, showing the difference between last tax year and this tax year for all your assessment classes. And at the bottom, it shows that you had about 2.5% growth and 6.9% inflation over all those assessment classes. Next slide. What's next? Property tax bylaw, mailing of assessment notices, including any inquiries that come in, any re-inspections that we're asked to do for property owners. We'll do those. And if we require having an assessment review board, then that will be held. And we're going to start our next cycle of assessment inspections as well.
Mike, was there any review boards from last year?
No, there wasn't. And then the last page just shows a couple of links for your information, website links, Guide to Property Assessment and Taxation in Alberta, which the Municipal Affairs puts out. It's got some really good information on our website as well. And ratepayers can go to our website. There is an assessment report area where you can click on the town of Bruderheim and pull up your assessment summary, your own assessment summary, and any other assessment summaries that you want to compare with to see the assessment differences or what have you. Yeah, and I think the town might have a link as well. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mike from council? Looks like that's the end of the line for questions. Mike? Oh, Councillor Lynn?
Looking at 9.3, isn't it? So 9. How much is that is going to? Is it going to be like a 9% increase on taxes?
That's probably a question for admin because I don't get involved in that tax rate setting. So
No, but I mean, you have we went from 207 to 227. I can see the 9% growth rate there.
Yeah.
Now, how does that equate to taxation?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Falardo, we have to set the budget first, and then that determines the tax rate.
Okay, I understand that, but
Yeah.
I didn't know that 9% sounds pretty large in the
Yeah,
world.
that's
Doesn't necessarily
equate to
tax.
I know, I
9%.
realize that.
Yeah,
We still have our budget to do and everything else, and we set their rate.
Yeah.
Our mill rate.
so yeah, essentially, council has to decide on the budget first, and then we can establish the tax rate.
Okay, thank you for the question, Councillor Lynn. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, thanks very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, and thanks for all the great information. And look forward to another assessment year this year. Okay, motion from council to accept Mike's report as information. Councillor Wayne.
The town council accept the April 6, 2022 Town of Bruderheim assessment presentation as presented by Mike Grimm from Tamar Consulting Incorporated.
Thanks, Councillor Wayne.
Thank
Have
you.
a safe drive home, Mike. So any comments, questions, or concerns with the motion to accept Tanmar Consulting presentation? Okay, so call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. So now we
Mr.
move-
Mayor, just before my
Yep.
Director of Finance leaves, I would just like council to thank her for, it's been, those two portfolios fall under her, so it's been a crazy month and she's done an incredible job of guiding us all through that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Sorry, question, sorry, before she
Councillor
leaves
Wayne.
and runs away. I know it's a question we ask every year, but how many houses are still on there, the tax-free?
Mr. Mayor, we don't have any houses on the tax-free free. We just have one commercial business.
Thanks for the question. So now we move on to 5.3 Pitchin Week proclamation. So this is an addition to the agenda. Pitchin Week proclamation, whereas hundreds of thousands of Canadians show their concern for the environment in their communities each year by participating in the Pitchin Canada projects to reduce, reuse, recycle, and properly dispose of water, clean up and rejuvenate local neighborhoods, green spaces, ravines, waterways, and illegal dump sites, restore habitats, and to establish composting and recycling projects. And whereas Pitchin Canada, a national community-based organization comprised of eco action and community volunteers, believes that maintaining a quality environment and encouraging civic pride is everyone's responsibility. And whereas Pitchin Canada encourages voluntary action to keep communities clean and beautiful and restore and maintain a healthy environment, therefore, I, Mayor Carl Hauk, do hereby proclaim the week of April 17th to 22nd, 2022 as Pitchin Week in the town of Bruderheim, and invite all citizens in our community to actively participate in Pitchin Week. And I'll sign and date the document. So for Pitchin Week, is the town giving out garbage bags or?
Mr. Mayor, we're fortunate to partner with the Bruderheim Ag Society this year, and there'll be more information coming in about some of our plans. It's going to be fun. And actually, I don't want to get it wrong, but a couple of our industry partners, I'll be sending people to help with Pitchin Week as well. So.
Great, thank you. So be looking for a motion to accept the Pitchin Week proclamation as information. Councillor Len.
I so move we accept the Pitchin Week proclamation.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Len. Any comments, questions, or concerns with the motion on Pitchin Week? And the motion's carried. And we move on to 6.1. We captured that we lost Councillor Dana for a little bit. Okay. Yep. So now we're looking for a motion to adopt the minutes of the March 16th, 2022 regular meeting of council. Councillor George.
I make a motion that we adopt the minutes of the March 16th, 2022 regular meeting of council as presented.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns with the motion for adopting the minutes from March 16th? Everyone's had a chance to read the minutes. Okay, call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion to adopt the minutes? And the motion's carried. So we can move on to council priorities, 7.1 information request. And we'll start with Councillor George. Any information requests?
Just have one request. It's in regards to our bylaw in and around the use of quads and bikes within the town. What are we doing to mitigate this? It's becoming a problem over in the Brookside area, plus it's in our area as well.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Campbell, I agree. And again, that's coming in the traffic bylaw. Council will be seeing that bylaw. We've been working with the RCMP and enforcement services to come up with some options there. So that'll be coming to council in the, not next week, but the week after, our next council, early May.
Is there going to be a setup for patrols or?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, we've asked enforcement services to do some proactive education patrols. Absolutely.
Thank you ever so much. Wait for your response.
Thank you for that information request, Councillor George. Councillor Ashley.
I attended the Bruderheim School Council meeting yesterday, and they're going to be having a fundraiser with that selling teals planters. Would that be something we could have at the town, just the sheets, if people wanted to help the school raise some money?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Carter, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys are involved with any nonprofits, I know we've helped the Girl Guide sell cookies and we've promoted other nonprofits selling things. So we're absolutely open to that for sure.
Thank you for that information request, Councillor Ashley. Anything else?
No, that's everything. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask Councillor Carter a question?
Sure.
I think the tender closed. Did they talk about the playground at all?
Yes, they did. And they revealed the
Okay.
playground, and the principal is going to be having a big reveal for the students. And he thanked the town and you for your hard work for the grants in helping getting the playground. And they're very happy and very excited. So that's going to start in July. Yeah, and then it should be done by mid-August so that the kids come back to school and they'll have a new playground.
Oh, it's so exciting. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Councillor Wayne?
Just one thing. Have you heard much or talked with the Moravian Church in regards to what the plans are for that building or what the plans are for that area?
The Bavarian Church, they are hoping to get the Bavarian Church up and running again.
And how long, like, I'm just looking at, what are they assessed like for taxation? They don't pay the taxes, do they? Or are they, how does that work with that?
So, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, you're now talking about the Bruderheim Community Church, not the Bavarian Church. Bavarian Church is who owns the building currently housing the Bruderheim Community Church is now Bavarian. So you asked me about the Bruderheim Community Church?
The green roofed one.
Yeah.
That's
the Moravian
Bavarian?
Church.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Moravian Church. So you said that they're looking at trying to get a congregation back in there.
Yes.
So how long, like, are they, what are they taxed at? Like, how does that work with that, with
Oh,
churches?
churches don't pay taxes.
Okay, so I guess my question is, how long are we going to wait to see what happens with that before we like?
Oh,
need to
Mr.
do
Mayor,
something?
the Councillor Elecco, as long as they continue to be registered as a church, it's a church, whether or not they're practicing in there or not. If they change the use and sublet it, they'd have to get a development permit, and that would trigger us to then consider the assessment and taxation.
So nothing can be done until they decide to,
Change the use of the
Change.
building. Yeah,
okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thanks for that, Councillor Wayne. Councillor Lynn.
Well, I'll be back on the church business here too. I'm quite concerned about the downtown building. It's our best building within the community. It's one of our best tax revenues. And I've been here for 4 or 5 years now. The biggest thing I've ever heard from this council is we need space. We need to develop our downtown. And that is a prime piece of property for businesses or for anybody. So first question I'm going to ask administration is, what is the tax revenue every year off that piece of property?
Mr. Mayor, I'd prefer to have those conversations in closed session just because personal confidential information.
Okay, well, we have a closed session today, so
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm very concerned about it because the growth of this community is determined on that building. That's the prime building in our community. And at this time, Bruderheim would make a huge mistake by letting a church and losing that tax dollars plus the development within the community. Okay, thank you very much.
thanks, Councillor Lynn. Anything else?
No.
Okay, Councillor Dana.
So on a positive note, it's not much, just, I guess, taking from what went on all this weekend with the ears event, and kind of being involved with the town and seeing, so super awesome. Everyone stayed at the hotel. They supported our hotel, which is awesome. They went for supper to Lily's, supported Lily's, went for breakfast to the senior center, supported our seniors, went to the rink for breakfast, supported them. And it was such an amazing event. And talking about, I know everybody talks about, like, we were trying to make profit for the town, but man, this weekend was community. It was all community. Everybody came together and it was so nice. And it was a great weekend. Like, if you were there, you got to experience like just the energy in the building and just how the community came together. And I think that is one big thing is community. And that is, and this weekend, last weekend just showed that. So I know you talk about the profit of the bank, but like, community is number one, and this weekend sure proved it. And the Egg Society and everybody who contributed to it did awesome. So yeah, yours was a really good event. So
Yeah.
there's so many.
Yeah.
So many.
Great job by the volunteers in that event. Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Dana? I didn't have any information requests, and we'll go with program requests now. We'll go reverse order, and Councillor Dana, any program requests?
No, I don't. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Len, any program requests?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wayne,
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Ashley,
Nothing at this time.
and Councillor George.
Yeah, it's a couple of years ago, the councillors went to plant a flower pot thing with the communities in bloom. I was wondering if that could be held again, or
You want to plant flowers?
I do, and no, I would like to donate a pot to on behalf of our town. But I found it a real good melding sort of a thing. To do that exercise. So I was wondering if that could be looked at again for.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, absolutely, we can arrange that. And as you know, the Ag Society was successful in a grant to revitalize the Queen's Park in celebration of the Queen's Jubilee. And we were looking at doing a staff council event there to use the funds more for the revitalization than the labor. So yeah, we're on the same page for sure of looking at opportunities. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that, Councillor George. And move on to requests for decisions 8.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to provide council with information considered to change the April 20th, 22 council meeting date. We're recommending that town council approve the April 20th, 2022 regular meeting of council date to Tuesday, April 19th at 7 p.m. Council history, the council meetings are always held on the first and third Wednesday of each month. Strategic plan areas, changing the meeting date will provide us with an opportunity to provide tours for residents that are not familiar with the Emergency Operations Center. Open and transparent governance, a community is educated on responsibilities, limitations of council and administration, and the requirement of bylaws passed by council. Other impacts, proceeding of council bylaw 11-2019 sets out when council meetings will occur. The town of Bruderheim staff will be participating in emergency management exercise on April 20, 21st, and 22nd. It would be beneficial to leave the training area set up for emergency management exercise and not have to move the furniture around in the council chambers. Additionally, we are celebrating the grand opening of the Resilient Rurals Interagency Operations Center on April 20th at the Fire Hall in the space utilized for council meetings. Administration will ensure that the date of the council meeting is advertised and on social media and on our website. That's everything, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. So we're looking for a motion from Councillor Wayne.
The town council approved the April 20th, 2022 regular meeting of council. Date changed to Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion from council? It'll be advertised on the website and at the store or something to alert folks.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. Social media and on our website.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council? Okay, haven't heard none. We'll call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion is carried. So we can move on to 8.2, borrowing bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to provide council with information regarding our line of credit bylaw. The town council give first reading to bylaw 04-2022, a bylaw to incur indebtedness by the issuance of a line of credit. On November 3rd, 2021, council passed bylaw 09-2021 to incur indebtedness by the issuance of a line of credit with ATB Financial. Strategic plan areas, the community is educated on responsibilities and limitations of council and administration. ATB Financial requests that council pass the bylaw annually, and administration will endeavor to provide it to council in the first quarter annually. That's everything, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. So we're looking for a motion from Councillor George.
I make a motion that town council give first reading to bylaw 04-2022, a bylaw to ensure indebtedness by the issuance of a line of credit.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor George. And any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Councillor George.
In the past, we've had the line of credit. Have we had to use it?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, no.
So it's just a backup in case of emergency then.
Absolutely. Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, we established that at the beginning of COVID, not knowing what COVID would bring. And council has agreed that for an emergency purposes, so if a storm was to hit and we had to hire a whole bunch of equipment really fast, again, we can't use a line of credit without coming to council. That would be a council decision before we use the line of credit.
Thank you for that information.
Thanks, Councillor George. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion is carried. So we can move on to reports. We'll be looking for a motion to receive the mayor and council committee reports as information. Councillor Ashley.
That council receive the mayor and council committee reports as information.
Thanks, Councillor Ashley. Any comments, questions, or concerns with the mayor and council committee reports? Okay, Call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. We're looking for a motion now to receive the Chief Administrator Officer report as information. Councillor Dana,
I motion that we accept the chief administrative officer report that council, is that, yeah? How do I go about that? I have it right here. Yeah. So what do I say? I just
read exactly what it says.
the chief administrative officer report that we accept it as information. Thank you. Sorry, brain fart, guys.
No worries. That's all good. Not a worry. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Councillor George has a question.
With our overland flooding, we've had a couple of incidents. Has there been any excessive costs in mitigating the washouts and due to road flooding and stuff like that?
Mr. Mayor, through Council Campbell, the only thing we did was we hired a contractor to remove ice from some of our larger multi-plate culverts that's too big for our own steaming system. So we hired a bigger truck to make sure the ice was removed in preparation, especially on the West Woodlands, and one of the creek culverts
Yeah.
hadn't popped. So we did that one as well. Those are our responsibility, as they used to be a road there. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah,
In our natural area. So those culverts are the town's responsibility. So we popped that one. So far, that's the only cost, and some overtime for staff, of course.
I would like to thank the town for their work and diligence that they did in getting the pumping station on the Highway 45. It was a good job.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, again, that if you notice that Highway 45 now is hooked up with the help of Alberta Transportation financially. So it's a 2-inch pump that's submersible there. So as soon as the ditch gets a certain level, that water will pump. And we're hoping that this time, probably not next year, we'll probably have one more year with that. We have that study being done right now, and then we'll apply for funding in 2023 to do some resolution over there.
One other question. If we should find that the 2-inch pump is not capable of handling the water flow, is a power source adequate for, say, a 4-inch pump?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, so the 4-inch pumps are gas that we have, so.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just a 2-inch pump that's in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor George. Any other questions on the CAO report? Okay, haven't heard none. Call for a vote. And anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. So we need a motion for correspondence and information items. Councillor Wayne,
Make a motion that town council accept the listing of correspondence and information items for the period of March 11, 2022 to April 1st, 2022 as information.
thank you, Councillor Wayne. He's done it for a few years. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns with correspondence and information item motion? Councillor Wayne?
Was there any feedback or update in regards to the virtual town hall from the RCMP detachment? What happened and
Mr. Mayor, did you get any? I didn't get anything. Typically, the mayor and I get updates. I haven't heard anything.
okay,
I
thank
can
you.
look into it if there was a summary, or is that what you're looking for?
Yeah,
Like,
just to
okay.
see what was brought up
Comments
and what,
and-
yeah,
Okay, I can get that for us.
thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Wayne. Any other questions, comments, concerns on the correspondence and information items? Okay, haven't heard none. We'll call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. So now we would be entertaining a motion to go out of the public session. Councillor Wayne,
Make a motion to go out of open session.
thanks for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Councillor Wayne?
Can we do a comfort break before we continue on after?
Yeah, once we're out of the open session, sure. And we'll call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion to go out of the open session? And the motion's carried. So then we'll entertain a motion for the closed session after a break, or do we need a motion for the,
Mr. Mayor, we should have a motion for a comfort break.
okay, Councillor George? for 5 minutes? Okay, thank you. Anyone opposed to that motion? And motion's carried.
Make a motion to go back into public session.
Thanks for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with the motion to go back into public session? Hearing none, call for a vote. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. So now we need a motion to go into closed session.
Make a
Councillor Len.
motion that we go into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Len. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, and call for a vote. Anyone opposed to the motion to go into closed session? Hearing none, motion is carried and we're in closed session now.